our 10th anniversary special.
10 years. Hard to believe, huh?
Yeah, who would have thought when we did our very first show that we'd still be on the air 10 years later?
We're very lucky.
Well, with me, it's not so much luck as talent. Talent and an overpowering charisma that appeals to the masses.
Yeah, right. Do you realize that Ike was just a baby when we first started the show? And Tina would...
She was 5.
5.
Mm-hmm.
And Turner wasn't even a glimmer in that twinkle in your eye.
Yeah, well, 10 years ago it was a twinkle. Now it's a sty.
Oh. Harry and Idella weren't even recurring characters.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And now?
And now we have a wonderful extended family that cares about each other and loves each other and respects each other.
Mom, I hate your approach to motherhood.
Well, that'd be me.
Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Gimmicks, a podcast about the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking gimmick episodes of TV, from musicals to bottle episodes to a pilot episode told in the style of an anniversary clip show. I'm Derek B. Gale.
And Bernard, don't be a tuna head. It's me, David Arnold, and who is with us here today?
Hello, I am Chris Cummins from Sci-Fi Explosion.
Chris, it's so wonderful to have you because we are going to explode into sci-fi a little bit for the show.
Wow.
Listen, I had it. This episode, of course, we are talking about Maniac Mansion's pilot episode, the 10th anniversary special.
And if you are not familiar with Maniac Mansion, it's a sitcom aired for 3 seasons from September 1990 to April 1993, concurrently on the YTV channel in Canada, which is basically like Canada's Nickelodeon, essentially, and also in the United States on the Family Channel. This show centers around the lives of an eccentric scientist named Fred Edison and his family, his wife Casey, his genius daughter Tina, his son Avi, his toddler in an adult body Turner, we'll talk about that, and brother-in-law Harry, who's been mutated into a fly, we'll also talk about that, and his wife Idella, how do they pronounce her name?
Idella.
I don't remember.
Idella, yeah.
What a name. What a name.
What a whole cast, honestly.
What a name. Yeah, what a name. What a cast. It's loosely based, if you recognize the name, loosely based on the 1987 video game of the same name by Lucasfilms Games, which features that like Edison family in name, but not really in much else, which we will certainly talk about. But yeah, this is going to be one of those episodes that I'm sure everyone has been clamoring for gimmicks to do, because people are desperate for us to do a Maniac Mansion episode for the 10 years that Gimmicks has been on the air. Yeah, no, this is a fucking weird show, and I love that we're doing it. We need to talk about our experiences with it. Chris, I'm already forgetting how we ended up doing this. Did you pitch this to us to do Maniac Mansion?
I believe I did. I was a huge fan of Maniac Mansion, the game. When it came out in 1987, I had it for the Commodore 64, and it was one of those games, I was a kid who was very into like interactive fiction text games. Mm-hmm. And then LucasArts started putting out these kind of point and click puzzle games that were very much like the best parts of interactive fiction, along with like graphics. And this was, the Maniac Mansion game was kind of like a tribute to 1950s and 60s sci-fi B movies.
Yep.
And it, like that kind of mixed with a Breakfast Club feel, if you can imagine that. So it was amazing. And I was a huge fan, and I played it nonstop on the Commodore. And then I got very into Nintendo, and I heard that Nintendo was coming out with their own port of Maniac Mansion, which there's a whole incredibly long history of the troubles that were undergone trying to transfer Maniac Mansion from the LucasArts original to the Nintendo. And yeah, I'll send you an article that you can link in the show notes, and because that's a whole fascinating thing in and of itself. So around the time the Nintendo port comes out, I hear through LucasArts fan magazine that there's going to be a Maniac Mansion television show starring a bunch of people from SCTV. One of the creators of the show was Eugene Levy, and it starred Joe Flaherty, John Hempel, who was also on SCTV, and Mary Charlotte Wilcox, who was also on SCTV. So, it has this really great pedigree. It was written by one of the regular writers was Michael Short, Martin Short's brother. So it has a really good comedy pedigree to it. And the show comes out and doesn't really make much of a mark on anyone because in the United States it aired on the Family Channel, which was just in the process of rebranding from the Christian Broadcasting Network. And this is not a show that you would expect to see on like a family faith-based channel because of how weird and subversive and crazy it was. So my experience with the show was basically me from 1990 to 1993 talking about it endlessly in the pre-internet life and trying to get everyone I know to tune into this show because I was just such a super fan of it. I liked SCTV, but I loved Maniac Mansion. And especially the first season of Maniac Mansion, I think is just there's no clunkers. I think every episode it's like whoops all bangers. The second season, you can see that they were having to change the show a little bit due to the producers being like, "What is this now?"
Yeah.
And then the third season, there's a lot of kind of interference from, I'm guessing the Family Channel. They slapped on a laugh track, which is the most obtrusive laugh track to this day I've ever heard on a TV show.
I didn't know
But
that.
it also gave us some of the weirdest episodes of the show yet, where they completely if they broke the fourth wall and threw out narrative conventions in the first episode, you can imagine what they were doing by the time the third season rolled around when no one was watching. And so my journey with Maniac Mansion was basically being like, oh my God, does this really exist? Is anyone else on the planet know this exists? Everyone should know about this. Why don't people know about this? And, you have to remember, as the old man on the podcast here tonight, what pre-internet life was like, where it was really word of mouth. And so I was like a one-man street team for this show. And my love for it has just grown over the years. And when Schitt's Creek came out, I really, really hoped there'd be like a Maniac Mansion renaissance, which didn't happen because, as we'll get into later, there's a lot of connections between this and Schitt's Creek. And it's just a really fun, really unexpected sitcom that to this day I think holds up.
Wow. That was incredible, Chris. Just beautiful.
Yeah. When you said like it didn't make its mark definitely in the United States, I feel like it had to have made some kind of a mark in Canada to have lasted for 3 seasons, right? Like, I mean, it couldn't have been, I'm sure it went under the radar here because it was on the Family Channel, but like, at least in Canada, I feel like it wasn't nothing there, right?
I hope so. I know that this was such a low budget show to produce.
Sure.
And I know like when they had some high profile guest stars like Martin Short on, I'm pretty sure everyone worked for scale. And, it was, I imagine, I don't know if it fell under the CanCon kind of thing in Canada where, I don't know if any Canadian listeners can, because that's one thing I would love to know is like, because to this day, there's still not all that information about the show out there other than people sounding like loons like me being like, have you heard this show? It's great. Because it's a spin-off of a cult video game that no one really knows. So, it's just this weird thing that came from this other weird thing, and they're both completely different, although tangentially related. And it's just this weird pop culture oddity that, much like the video game itself, that like the people who love it truly, truly love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I will say if anyone can dig up information about a show that you think there's no information about, it's David, because he always finds fucking ridiculous like old archived articles about things, and I'm like looking at these like show notes that he put together, and I'm like, how did you find any of this stuff? And
this was the edited version. So I told Derek earlier, I was like, I'm worried I put too much in. I already cut a lot of this out. So I did have some CanCon stuff in, Chris. This did qualify for the Canadian content control system, which means that any broadcast company in Canada has to air 60% Canadian content throughout the year, and in prime time that number is higher.
Interesting.
I'm losing it a little bit now, but this qualified, and part of what brought it over was the theme song being performed by a Canadian artist. That was one of the things that was in their notes, and that is important, I guess. I don't know a lot about it, and it doesn't really matter anymore because of changes to NAFTA and the internet, I guess, is the shorthand answer to CanCon stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, the singer Jane Siberry has a huge following.
She's like a Canadian pop star.
Yeah, and in the UK, one of the song's writers, the theme song's writers, was Eugene Levy and I think Michael Short, is also a well-known Canadian musician, Mary Margaret O'Hara, who may be better known to audiences at large for the woman who does the guttural singing on background singing on Morrissey's November Spawned a Monster single.
Whoa,
So that,
what?
yeah. So it's very odd.
She's also Catherine O'Hara's sister, right? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I don't know.
That is
it wouldn't
correct.
surprise me.
I can verify that. I had to jump down to my notes about the opening credits, but yep, that is Catherine O'Hara's sister. And
Fantastic.
listeners, get used to us talking about siblings, because everybody's got a brother or sister that works on something when it comes to SCTV. And also get used to us saying the letters SCTV, because there's a lot of SCTV history we've got to go through.
Yeah.
Derek, what is your history with the television program Maniac Mansion?
My history with Maniac Mansion, I'm sure I just heard of the game just because it's like an old, a game that has existed for a while and a popular one that's imported a lot of stuff. So I know out of it, never played it or anything like that, but I knew the name of it, but knew nothing about it. But I remember explicitly, you can find in a recording of a podcast when I first learned of the existence of this show. It was very, very early into Walloping Web Snappers. Like embarrassingly early. We were doing episodes where the X-Men crossed over with Spider-Man in the 90s. And so when we were talking about George Buza, we were looking at some of his credits and we were like, he was on a show called Maniac Mansion based on the video game where he played he played a toddler in an adult's body. What the fuck is this? We have to watch this. So like, I'm sure you can hear us talking about that on that episode that we covered 5 or 6 years ago or whatever. And so what we used to do on our Patreon early on was we would do these like after dark commentaries where Doug and I would get drunk and like watch a show and just commentate on it for like a 30 or 40 minute episode that we would do just for behind the paywall. And so we picked that one because we didn't know anything about the show. If you read about it, it sounds like it's going to be this like wacky Looney Tunes, like live action cartoon, and either that, or it's going to be like a bad sitcom, or it's going to be like a TGIF sitcom or something, right? Like it sounds like it's going to be something really silly and cartoony and fun to like get drunk and commentate on. And then we put it on. And we like have famously said that it's probably one of the worst episodes that we've ever done because we're like slowly discovering like this isn't a show that's good for a commentary.
No.
Because all the comedy is like in the dialogue that you have to listen to, and it's otherwise very quiet and kind of slow paced. And like the weirdness is just like in its foundation and just sort of like what it's subverting. It's not like a cartoony show in that way. And so like we're trying to talk over this, but then we can't hear what characters are saying. So we're like, I'm sure they said something funny, but I don't know what it was. I don't know how to do this. And then we had a whole bunch of audio issues and shit too. So like the whole thing was a clusterfuck. It's so bad. I have not gone back and listened to it because I can't bring myself to do that with our old stuff. But like we went on a whole journey with it, but came out of it. I know by the end of it just being like, this was the worst possible first experience to have with this show, but it's so clear that it is just obviously a more intellectually comedic show than I think what we were looking for, that we would need to go back and rewatch again. And I think eventually after the fact, I went back and like watched another episode of it and sort of like, okay, yes, I get it. It's just it is not the vibe we were expecting. It is a show you kind of have to like pay attention to catch on to the jokes because it's often like very quietly funny in a lot of ways. But the first exposure to it it's all out there in recordings. You can listen to it, and it's not great, unfortunately.
Incredible. Nope, I'm obsessed with that. I will go back and listen to that.
Please don't.
Just to hear. I'm going to. I'm doing it right now. This is a lot of fun for me because I knew the Maniac Mansion television show from its reputation, and we'll be diving into this a little deeper, pretty reviled by cult fans of the video game, because I don't know what they were expecting. Not like the 1990s were a great time to make media out of a video game IP, but maybe they thought this would be the one that would rise above. And it's fundamentally different than the video game. And I think that if you were expecting Dave and his cohort of friends to be saving Sandy every week in some sort of serialized adventure, you were not going to get that. And instead, what you got was a very smart and sketch comedy basis show. And I think that's where that bump came from. But of course, I only knew about the complainers, the nonsense makers. I was a huge fan of the game, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in a bit.
Yeah, well, they're wrong.
I will defend. No, they're wrong. They are wrong. It's a great show. I guess I just think this show might have even done well if it was divorced of the concept of Maniac Mansion, and was just in the hands of these people to just have fun with, which is SCTV, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in that weird in-between place as someone who, like, absolutely loved the game and then, like, realized very quickly on, like, oh, this is not the game at all.
Right.
But you know, like, I mean, the only... I think they... You know, the game is very much based on this meteor that kind of has mind control powers and makes Dr. Fred Edison kind of a lunatic and his whole family and blah, 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 blah. And there is no Ike, Tina, or Turner in the game. You know, so it's very, and there's no Uncle Harry, nothing like that.
Right.
So, you know, watching the show right away, I kind of picked up on like, okay, this is nothing like the game, but this is what it is. And as someone who, like, totally loves, like, surreal flourishes of things like Kids in the Hall and Monty Python, I was very much in a sketch comedy mode at that point.
Yeah.
And this show, like, would go from having a bunch of series of vignettes to telling a full coherent story, but doing it in a very subtly funny and sweet way, to having completely crazy over the top episodes, which were wild. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was this show or another show where the whole thing was they were going to do a live episode and it wasn't live. I feel like this is Maniac Mansion, but I could be confusing it in my addled brain with something else. But, you know, Maniac Mansion did have a lot of very high concept episodes.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the pilot, you see the meteor for about 2 seconds on screen, and it's the thing that, you know, it's checking off the box of here's something for the people who watch it.
Yeah.
And that is the only bit of fan service that the show does in the entire first season, which is amazing.
There's a little bit in the opening credits, which are brilliant, and we'll be talking about that, all these like news clippings of the named Edisons from the game, but we are to interpret that they are long dead. And maybe if you're not going to actually base it on the game, that's the smart way to use the property. And I give huge kudos there for that decision. But I can understand how that might make you feel really hurt if you were like, nobody understands me except for Maniac Mansion and this rocker chick who I obsess about because she's got a good look and big hair. You know, I get you.
It's kind of worth mentioning, too. The most infamous thing about the Maniac Mansion game was that you could microwave a hamster in the game.
That is true.
When Nintendo edited all this adult content out of the game, but somehow left that in their port of the game.
Yeah.
It's a great game.
It's a great
Play
game.
it online.
It's a great game. Don't Be a Tuna Head was, by the way, my reference to the Nintendo version, which was some of the changed language that Nintendo required to their port. That is infamous, I guess.
Another infamous example was there was a video game called Tuna Diver. And Nintendo said you cannot put that because of the connotations it has, so they changed it to Muff Diver.
Oh
so,
my God, it's so good. So good.
Yeah, there is a whole document out there. Like, do your homework after listening to this. It's the most fun kind of homework. Read about the journey to bring Maniac Mansion to the NES because it is a wild journey.
The Maniac Mansion 10th anniversary special will return after these commercial messages.
All began as an innocent little lab accident, and now Uncle Harry is an uncommon housefly, and 4-year-old Turner is as big as Dad. But the Edison family makes the best of a bizarre situation in their happy home known as Maniac Mansion.
I want you to meet the Edisons. Ike, Idella, Turner, Tina, Casey, and Harry.
Over here! Down! To the right! How you doing?
Maniac Mansion accentuates the positive as the looniest, sweetest family comedy of the year.
No matter what, through thick and thin, and no matter how strange your family may appear to be, it's the family stays together. They stay close-knit.
Experience Maniac Mansion on Sunday and Friday nights, only on the Family Channel.
Well, we're not done talking about the game, but let's talk about the show for now. We've got an incredible suite of creators. Chris gave us a little bit of the bio of these folks earlier, but at the helm is Eugene Levy. We're also joined on the Created By line by Paul Flaherty, who is a writer and producer on Second City TV and all the SCTV properties that would come to follow. He also wrote on The Tracy Ullman Show in 1987. Another creator who's credited is John Hemphill. He appears as Harry the Fly, so we'll be seeing a lot of him and talking more about him soon. Another SCTV alum. Michael Short, as Chris talked about, the older brother of Martin Short. He wrote 74 episodes of SCTV before coming on to Maniac Mansion. He is also the series writer for the completely mental misadventures of Ed Grimley, which is an incredible animated series starring Martin Short as sort of this neurotic Canadian, I guess, for want of a better word. I was kind of obsessed with it. So yeah, great. Thank you.
Incredible.
It's stupid. It's so stupid. I'm going to make you watch an episode, Derek. It is so dumb, but I love it so much. It's got a very Dr. Katz quality.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, there's our guy, Eugene Levy. So Eugene Levy is sort of, for want of a better word, the showrunner for Maniac Mansion. He is an SCTV alum as well. No surprise there. 129 episodes as an actor across all of the programs and 135 episodes as a writer. He is also, of course, folks might know him as the credited writer and appeared in Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, A Mighty Wind, as part of his ongoing partnership with his friend, Christopher Guest. And then he is the creator, writer, and star of Schitt's Creek, which recently, I guess, a little while ago now, but like swept the Emmys and won everything when we were all stuck at home. Schitt's Creek sort of blew up during that time.
Yeah. I agree with Chris. I think it's sort of weird that, like, considering how unexpectedly huge Schitt's Creek was, like, the last half of its run, and it is funny that people just, like, there was no, like, runway to people discovering this show through that. And maybe it is as simple as that it's just not on any streaming platforms, like, officially. Like, I think that literally might be the only reason, because I don't know, it's not fun to watch, like, the ugly VHS rips on YouTube. So, like, it's not like people can stumble on this show very easily.
You know? Cannot. And I love both of you very, very much. But I watched a few more episodes besides just the pilot, and wow, this is like, it was hard to watch because of how poor the quality was. Yeah. Even the audio quality. And God bless whoever ripped these off the VHS, because as I'll talk about, the rights issue becomes very, very complicated because of, like, I don't know, globalism and NAFTA, frankly. This one sucks. The people who own the rights to this split into 17 different companies.
Yeah. I would be surprised if there were ever an official release of this. Even, like, you know, the iOffer and the Etsy and the Internet Archive versions. There's 10 different versions of this show out there in the world, and they're all the worst quality. I recently found some of my VHS tapes of the show, and I'm wondering, like, I don't have like a VCR anymore, but I've held on to those tapes
Oh,
because
I do.
I'm gonna get those. Oh, I know, Derek. I'll talk to you off air because next time I see you, we're digitizing this Maniac Mansion.
There we go. Hell yeah.
But I have a feeling that that's going to be terrible quality too. I don't think unless someone does like a thing like the people who starred on MTV's Austin Stories did, where they just like leak the master copies to the internet and like have them be out in the world. Unless someone does that with Maniac Mansion, we're just going to be stuck with these terrible things because I'm sure there's a Disney issue too because of LucasArts,
Right.
and there's Star Wars references in like Star Wars characters pop up in the show from time to time in just like brief cameos, and it's part of the weirdness of Maniac Mansion. But like rights wise, it's got to be an absolute nightmare. And like when Schitt's Creek came out, I'm like finally like I would have conversations to myself and be like, finally, Maniac Mansion is going to get some of the get stuck in the Schitt's Creek wake. It's the pandemic. People are going to be like, hey, because the DNA of Schitt's Creek is very much embedded in Maniac Mansion.
Yeah.
Because at this show's heart, it's about a family of lovable outsiders.
Yep. Well, you've heard us talk about it, but a large portion of the cast and crew for Maniac Mansion were alumni of the Toronto comedy troupe The Second City and the 1976 to 1984 television offshoot Second City Television and its follow-up programs. In a 1992 article visiting the set of Maniac Mansion, Entertainment Weekly remarked that Maniac Mansion was like an SCTV convention. There are so many former SCTV actors, writers, directors, key grips, even Mansion's makeup artist is an old SCTV-er.
I need to read that article.
We'll have a link in the show notes, Chris.
Hey, yeah.
It's the archive.org version.
Is SCTV, or not, I mean, not SCTV, is Second City still like a thing?
Yes.
Like, can you still join like Second City and as an improv troupe type thing? Like
in Toronto and Chicago, yes. I forget. I think it started in Chicago first.
It did start in Chicago. Oh boy, did you want some history on Second City, Chris?
Hey.
Wow. Second City started in Chicago. It is the oldest improvisational theater troupe to be continuously based in Chicago, with training programs and live theaters in Toronto and New York. Since its debut in 1959, it has become one of the most influential and renowned in the English-speaking world, producing powerful comedians who have become cultural mainstays in the United States and Canada. And then I have pasted in a list of a lot of people, and I will not name them all, but
yeah. I mean,
it's
like famously like tons of like SNL people,
tons of SNL
like come
people
from SCTV or come from Second City. Yeah.
Chris, I don't remember which of the two of you asked, are they still doing it? The answer is yes, but it has been bought by a VC, a venture capitalist, in the last 3 years.
So it's going to not exist probably in the next couple of years. More than likely.
Its purchase was aligned with the CEO stepping down after accusations of racism on his part. Maybe it's good. Better. Amber Ruffin has written a little bit about the new direction of Second City, and she is a Second City alum and a Black woman, and she was part of the folks who stepped forward and talked about Second City and some of its management. I think when money gets involved, it's always kind of like icky and gross. Maybe put a pin on it. It is still available. If you are interested in becoming an improv comedian, this is Harvard. This is like and Harvard sucks, so that's a terrible example, but this is the best thing that you could put yourself into because there's a huge network of folks if you are in the Midwest or East Coast. If you're on the West, UCB is your like guiding light.
Right.
SCTV is the Second City Television, a Canadian television sketch comedy show offshoot of the Toronto troupe that ran from 1976 to 1984, which means that it was a contemporary of Saturday Night Live, which only began in 1975. So these things would have been running at the same time, two massive juggernaut sketch programs, one of which is live and one of which had a sort of narrative through line arc. So this is like pre-Kids in the Hall. Like this is really, really intense and important history here. But SCTV itself, so the basic premise of the show was that Joe Flattery's character, Guy Caballero, which means Guy, was a greedy and incompetent network manager of the smallest local TV studio in the world, or maybe in Canada, or maybe in the United States. And the sketches were him programming his cheap ass stupid local studio. So it was like cutting to a baking show or cutting to a telenovela. That is how they sort of crafted their sketches around. The background on the creation of it, of Second City Television, is a little bit hard to parse. But in 1974, Andrew Alexander bought the rights to Second City in Canada for $1 from his friend and founder of Second City, Bernard Solins. Why a dollar? Were they more than friends? I don't know. I couldn't find any more information about this, but it seemed like a little sketchy. Andrew Alexander would end up being the one who was the CEO who was recently ousted of Second City. So he is sort of like connected to this world in a lot of different ways.
Huh.
He is not a creative dude, though. He is a tech dude. He's like backstage. People like know where to pull the levers and stuff. But good news, that's all he needed. He needed friends who were gaffers and lighters and could put on a take the stage performance and put it into television. And that's what he did. And so he brought all the cast together. He said, I know all these people who can make a television show. You're all really smart. What should we do? And it was either Sheldon Patinkin or Del Close from that meeting, who were in the original cast that was there in the Toronto stage, who came up with the concept. They ran with it. It went to air and it was wildly successful.
It's worth noting too that while this was going on, like the success of SCTV got to such a point that it ran in I forget if it was syndication or NBC first, but PBS stations started showing SCTV. And then SCTV was shown after Saturday Night Live in some markets. Which is funny because then after the first wave of SNL people left, SNL started poaching SCTV people, which is why you have, Martin Short bringing Ed Grimley from SCTV over to Saturday Night Live. And then around the same time, people from SCTV start breaking out, like John Candy, Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas did their Bob and Doug McKenzie characters, and that became which in itself was created because as a parody of Canadian content laws. But they made the Strange Brew movie in I think '82, and then that's how their careers took off, and and on and on and on. And this stuff is so interwoven into everything we love about comedy from the '80s that then influenced everyone we love today. And it's just so great. And then at the middle of it, or not even at the middle, in a forgotten corner, gathering dust, is Maniac Mansion, which had its hooks in all of these things, but was never able to have the sunlight shine on it like it should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it is kind of funny because, there's obviously this whole universe for of the Saturday Night Live, spin-off movies and things like that have existed. And that's just sort of accepted as to being in the sort of this related comedy canon. And it's sort of weird that this kind of is in that same sort of zone and just isn't really part of that canon. It's sort of weird that it's just sort of ignored from that.
I think it's because Canadians are too polite to just be like, oh, by the way, we have this great thing here that we did that you don't know about. I think it is just there is this kind of attitude of let's have the work speak for itself, which it does, and it does very well. But even to this day, I'm still surprised that how unknown this show is. It is true. The word cult is overused for everything. That's a whole other discussion. But when people say cult thing, oh, Star Wars is a cult movie. I don't think that is. Whereas Maniac Mansion is absolutely this weird unknown thing that is ripe for discovery. And I think it is going to happen at some point. We just need some high profile comedy nerd to be oh, hey, yeah, I really love Maniac Mansion, and things like that. Because, if there's one thing comedians love talking about, it's their influences and what made them, what little obscure things they need. We need to have a Criterion closet for like obscure comedy where people just walk in and pick bootlegs of shows that were forgotten off the shelf. And like there's so many you could do in Canada alone. You'd be like, "Oh, here's the Newsroom, here's Twitch City, here's Maniac Mansion." And there's all this great comedy that came from Canada that because it's Canadian, people tend to overlook it. And I don't think that's right. As a not so proud American, I say this is wrong. Discover Canadian comedy.
And to be clear, not the Aaron Sorkin newsroom, but like the Canadian.
The Ken Finkelman newsroom.
Wow. That was directed directly at me. Here's the deal. Chris could not be putting the ball on the tee more directly for me, because a nerd who wants to talk about SCTV, you must be talking about Martin Scorsese, who directed, filmed, and completely created An Afternoon with SCTV, a review of the program that would air on Netflix. It was developed.
Where's it at, Martin?
It was developed in April of 2018 and shelved in May of 2021. Netflix never released any of the footage. Scorsese was pissed about it, and it led to some real conflicts between their continued work together.
That's so
do we know why? Because I really, I'm going to old man in a cloud here, because like everyone on SCTV is getting older. Joe Flaherty has since died. He died last year, unfortunately, and he was featured prominently in that special. We need this.
So here's the deal. Joe Flaherty maybe was the one who leaked the news about Netflix not releasing it.
Okay.
Which he did on a Facebook comment on May 12th. And on May 13th, Netflix did release a press release that said that it had not been shelved, just delayed. But tick, 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 it's been 4 years. It would be really, really exciting to get this, especially since, or maybe, I don't know, that's waiting 5 years for to release something just so that it's a cool anniversary year. But of course, 2026 will be the 50th anniversary of SCTV. So maybe we will get something more there. I love that Martin Scorsese is obsessed with this. That just makes me feel like we're in good company.
Yeah,
I feel like after Scorsese passes, then it will suddenly get
Well, I hate that thought.
released, just because of how ghoulish the industry is.
That's true, though. That's true.
Yeah.
Hey,
Scorsese's final unreleased films.
An Afternoon with SCTV.
Yeah, right.
Wow. At least it's not white dudes killing each other, I guess.
Right.
Wow. Talking about ghoulish, Chris, you must be referring to the American Christian fundamentalist of Pat Robertson and the history of the Christian Broadcast Network, which you have already let us know was the predecessor for the Family Channel. I only really wanted to bring this up here because the Family Channel is like terrible, but it was the source of a lot of things that came from Canada to the United States.
Yeah, dude, I watched the shit out of the Family Channel and then Fox Family and then ABC Family. That whole arc of it before it became Freeform. I was there for all of it. It had because it was such it was a go-to for all of these, like you were saying, every Canadian thing. That was how I had access to any Canadian show that crossed over at all. And then eventually, once it started getting partnerships, and became Fox Family and ABC Family, every Saban related thing or thing that was on Fox Kids that I loved eventually ended up on that network. And it was the only way to watch reruns of Spider-Man and Digimon and Power Rangers, and eventually was the home to the new episodes of any of those things. It had a lot of great stuff on it. But I always remembered that you would always have to see the 700 Club playing in the morning at 7 a.m. And I would have to always see Pat Robertson right before Power Rangers or Spider-Man came on. And always found it weird until learning later in life that was the bizarre contract that they had where they were required to show the 700 Club for a very long time. And to the credit of the network, they would put a disclaimer before the 700 Club saying something like these don't the views of the 700 Club do not necessarily reflect the views of ABC Family or whatever. They were held at hostage to show this show every day.
There were some really during the first season, there were some subversive shots at the Family Channel in Maniac Mansion. There's a great episode where these two mobsters get out of prison and they meet up in their old hangout, and the hangout has since become a gay bar. and like they're oblivious to the fact that it's playing like Where the Boys Are on the,
Oh my God.
it's a very
So
like,
good.
it's not done with hate. It's just very like loving, but it's clearly a gay bar that they're in. And just the fact that this aired immediately after the 700 Club, to me, as like, as a young gay man, I'm just like, oh my God, this is so
Yeah.
subversive
Yeah.
and amazing. And and there were a few moments like that where it would either take subtle digs at religion, or just like, it really kind of very like the punk ethos of kind of biting the hand that feeds.
Yeah.
And obviously, because it was still aired in Canada, whatever, but in the US watching it, you really got the sense of like, wow, they are, it's a show that should not have been on the
Yeah.
Family Channel, but no one else either wanted it, or whatever journey it took to get on the Family Channel. It just if it landed on like Showtime, which had started doing,
Mm-hmm.
they already had success with shows like Brothers and It's Gary Shandling Show,
Yep.
or Fox or something, like it would have definitely, found like a more cult audience, I think, than what it wound up with. It
But
deserved.
they probably would have stopped airing it sooner than Family Channel.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. But I
Yeah.
mean, would it be better for a show to burn out like cult show, another Joe Flaherty cult show like Freaks and Geeks, getting like 20 episodes where it's revered and everyone talks about it, or going 3 seasons,
And no one knows
even
about
those
it.
3 great seasons, no one knows to this day. Everyone's like, people listening to this episode, so many people, this is going to be their introduction to Maniac Mansion for the first time,
I hope so.
because
I hope
it is
so.
something that to this day is completely unknown.
Yeah.
I've, be in my past as a freelance writer, I've had a few times articles, like I used to be a listicle writer. I'd write like, I had for two different editors, like I want to do a Maniac Mansion piece, and they'd be like, "What the hell is Maniac Mansion?" No one's, no one's going to go for this, and so it got, shot down. So yeah, it's I hope one of the benefits of doing this show is to like help spread the word for Maniac Mansion, because it still holds up and it's still really, really sweet and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the Family Channel thing. One of the funny things that I found, there was like a making of video you can find on YouTube that was just like aired, probably during one of the commercial breaks or something, or in Family Channel. One of the things that I thought was really funny, it's like makes it very clear of like how they're trying to like frame Maniac Mansion and the advertising to make it make sense for Family Channel, is that it's all, they're interviewing the actors and talking about the show, but every clip of an actor talking, everything with the narrator talking about it, it's all just sort of like, the show is so wholesome. It's about true family values. The narrator says it, quote, accentuates the positive. And then there's like this extended thing with George Buza saying like, there's no violence, there's no mayhem, there's no bad examples being set. It shows how people and families can live together and still love each other. And that's the message of the show. And it's like, that's not like untrue, I guess, but they're making it sound like it's like Seventh Heaven. Like, it's this, like the audience that would like this show, like that's that all of that stuff that they're saying would be such a turn off to all of those people. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, and the accentuate the positive was actually like their jingle at the time, because I remember having to sit through like the thing where they're like, Family Channel, we have Big Brother Jake, which was their other show, Jake Steinfeld, the former fitness trainer slash 1980s star. Like it would be Maniac Mansion and then Big Brother Jake, and I think there was like a nun comedy, maybe.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, something like that. And it would be like, if not Leon Redbone, but like a Leon Redbone-esque singer going, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative.
You wanna accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Tune in to the affirmative, the Family Channel, yes indeed.
I just remember my brother like walking through and be like, "What is this you're watching?" And I'd be like, "Well, it's Maniac Mansion." What?
That's so funny. It's so funny. Oh yeah, you can You can find those on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like literally, like Family Channel accentuate the positive.
Oh boy, I
bumpers.
don't.
That's incredible.
I can't. It just
Hurt your
it's
heart.
so bad.
Yeah.
There's so many of them, Chris. There's so many of these.
The reason to bring all this up, obviously we've talked a little bit about it, but I wanted to give a little bit of time to the game Maniac Mansion. Chris mentioned this, but it is like pivotally important in the development of video game history for this game to have come out. It's not just a fun cult game that everyone should play, but it is important. It was first released in 1987, created by adventure game icon Ron Gilbert. Tells the story of Dave and two of his friends who go into the Edison mansion to save Dave's girlfriend Sandy. Boo, heterosexuality, but whatever. The player completes story-based puzzles depending on the characters who are accompanying Dave, but because you can pick 2 of your 6 friends, it became one of the most replayable games on the market. There were lots of ways to solve things, including microwave a hamster, pretty gross, lots of subversive comedy in the game. But what made it important was that for the game, Gilbert created the script creation utility for Maniac Mansion, or the SCUM engine, which essentially was a text parser. Before this, you might be playing King's Quest, and you would type, or Zork, and you would say, look in cave, or grab scissors, but you'd have to type it out with your keyboard, and if you misspelled grab or whatever, things could go terribly wrong for you. The SCUM engine allowed you to click pick up and then click on the scissors, and that would pick up the scissors, and it was the first time that had really been present in a video game. Gilbert is also credited with the term cutscenes, even though he's not the first person to use them, but that made this game very important in history. LucasArts is, of course, the ones who made it. We've talked a little bit about that, but that is the same, like, George Lucas, like from Star Wars. But he's sold, or LucasArts sold the rights to the television to a company called Atlantis Films. And I talked about this earlier. This is a company that has become many companies. They had a lot of Canadian show licenses, and they divided them up and put them into cute little packages and sold the ones that were debt as part of like economic balancing or whatever. Bullshit capitalism. They were the ones who sort of sold what this show was going to be. And more importantly, they were the ones who picked Eugene Levy to run the show. I tried really hard. I can't figure out why, except that he was like an SCTV guy and pretty funny, is what I can really come to it from.
At this point, how much writing and stuff had he done? Had any Christopher Guest movies happened by this point?
No, at this point he was basically he was still a writer but primarily comedian film actor, like doing go-to kind of like one of Hollywood's like go-to guys for a fun scene, or he did a bunch of films. Obviously, this is long before he was Jim's father in American Pie, which kind of jump-started the Eugene Levy renaissance. But it was like, I think he was in National Lampoon's Vacation in a brief role. I don't have the IMDb in front of me right now, but he, like, one of my favorite things, which briefly predated Maniac Mansion, was he was in a movie called Armed and Dangerous, which was like a buddy comedy, him and John Candy, which I loved growing up. But he was known, but I think it was probably the pedigree of, let's get someone Canadian and funny and very clever who isn't like, who at the time was not like A-list enough that they couldn't afford him. So I'm sure he was affordable, and he brought in a lot of incredibly talented, also affordable people who he worked with. But the cast is, it's Deborah Thieker, who, this was the first time I've seen her. She has since gone on to also being in Christopher Guest films. And she's phenomenal as Casey in this. But yeah, I think Levy came aboard because he was Canadian, he was affordable, he's incredibly smart and incredibly funny, and I think he had a vision for this show. Because the show is very much like iconoclastic in that the way it kind of reforms a family sitcom into this weird nebulous thing that has never been before.
All of that makes sense for like after he comes on board. It is still weird. and I think the cost thing I think makes the most sense that you can afford him. He's a comedy guy they can afford, but it is still funny because like I know that like David pulled this interview quote for Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine where Levy had said that like when they offered like pitched this to him, like Lucasfilm already kind of had a Bible for the show they wanted it to be, and they wanted it to be like an Addams Family Munsters kind of like Gothic Haunted Mansion show.
Okay.
And that is what is interesting to me, that it's like I see how this show comes from Levy. It's funny to me for them to have like, here's our idea for this show. It seems like Levy is our guy for this Addams Family type show. Like that's the weird connection of why they approach him for that idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know which point that changed. I know there was a exec, I don't know who's in, named Barry Johnson, who really helped kind of spearhead this thing too. I don't know if he was the one who kind of got it away from Lucasfilm's pitch, or if he was one who was pushing Lucasfilm's pitch. But I know he was very instrumental in, working with Levy to bring us the final product. But that's an excellent point. Like, how does like an Addams Family ripoff become this, thing? And how did Levy talk them out of doing that? Because even at the time, Levy doesn't have the clout he has now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the Atlantis Films dude. And lots more fun there. So if you want to learn more about Atlantis Films, good luck. It took me a long time to figure out who the fuck they turned into. But that guy may have gone to jail. So wow. lots of fun with that and greed. So yay.
But either way, they gave Levy carte blanche to just do whatever he wanted. For whatever reason, they trusted him with it, and we're all the better for it, I guess. Yeah. It's just so odd to me, that whole sequence of events, I guess.
I also, the entire article is good, and we'll link to it because there is a scan of the Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine, but Chris probably also read this one. But
I own the original. It's like 20 feet from me.
It is wild going on to a fan magazine, which is like is pre-internet, but it's like it's the fans, and being like, yeah, I liked this property, but I wanted to write my own thing. Which is kind of what he says in the interview. It's like a real wild choice, Eugene. I just like calm down a little bit.
Yeah, he just basically like, all right, let's basically do for sitcoms what we did for everything else on SCTV, but have it be this long sketch that goes on for 3 seasons.
Exactly.
Maniac Mansion.
So this episode that we're talking about, it is the first episode of the show, season 1, episode 1, entitled, of course, 10th Anniversary Special. That is their pilot, the 10th Anniversary Special. Obviously, we're going to talk about it. It's originally aired as September 14th, 1990, which was just days before the NES port of Maniac Mansion, which I think has the Family Channel logo like on the box art for the release. So it's like
it does. I have that game. It's one of the few games I still have. It came with a little poster.
Yep.
And the poster had front and center a Family Channel, logo on it. Yeah. And I remember vividly watching this episode during its first airing, and then 2 days later or 3 days later going out and buying the game.
Oh, funny.
So
yeah. The synopsis per IMDb of this episode is: Fred falls asleep in the lab and dreams that his family is starring in a sitcom celebrating its 10th anniversary. The Edisons watch home movies and flash back to Turner and Harry's accident. Again, that's your synopsis for the pilot episode of this television series. Incredible. What a baller move.
I was just happy there was a synopsis, honestly, Darren.
That's true. That there's any information on IMDb at all is actually kind of shocking.
The sheer audaciousness that this episode does is just like, okay, you haven't played this game? We don't care.
Yeah.
You don't know what the show is? Okay, here's how we're going to establish it. Through these flashbacks to things that never happened before, we're going to have a whole amazing bit that comes out of nowhere about having footage of the Kennedy assassination that
Oh my
no one
God.
has ever seen before, which is still the episode's highlight to me.
Yeah.
We're gonna name the kids Ike, Tina, and Turner because Fred and Casey are like aging hippies. Just there's all of these little moments in this pilot episode that you're like, what are they doing? Why do they live in a Frank Lloyd Wright house? Like it's just like there's little touches, and just like as a kid, I think this was probably my first introduction to meta narrative techniques.
Sure.
And Maniac Mansion bookended its first season with it because the last episode of the season was an episode called The Cliffhanger, in which there is a cliffhanger before the first commercial break, and the rest of the episode is a rap party for the first season. And it features Eugene Levy playing like this exaggerated example of himself. And this is, we're years away from Larry Sanders, where celebrity did this all the time. So that kind of blew my mind. And the whole season is punctuated with these little meta moments. And the first, right off the bat, this episode tells you what it's going to be. It is going to be about a family, but it's going to tell their stories in the most non-traditional way that is very subversive and very punk for the time, given where it's airing, even more so.
Yeah.
And just the balls of not having any connection to the game was a big risky move. And it did kind of backfire because, as David said earlier, fans of the game hated this show. And I think they probably watched the first episode and like never gave it a chance to be what it is. That was it. I mean, I'm sure, BBS boards at the time were lit up with people complaining about, oh my God, did you see what they did to Maniac Mansion? Where's Weird Cousin Ed? Where is this? Where is this? And just none of those things ever made the appearance on the show. And I kind of love that they're just like, we're just going to have it be our own weird thing that's basically in name only. And I mean, there's a ballsiness to that,
I agree.
Wild that you think people are like, where's Weird Cousin Ed, and not, I need naked pictures of Nurse Edna, but different internets, I guess.
Yeah. No one even has a pet hamster. It's
no one has a pet hamster.
Yeah, let's run through some of the people that were involved in this pilot episode. It's credited to John Hemphill, David Flattery, and Eugene Levy. We've talked about Hemphill and Levy. David Flattery is one of the many Flatterys. He's Joe Flattery's younger brother and SCTV writer. For Flattery, Maniac Mansion would actually be his final writing credits. He's credited on all 67 episodes of the show. It seems like he just went to teach comedy writing at Humber College after this, and he did that until he got sick and passed away in 2017. So yeah, that's his career. This episode was directed by John Bell, of course, you guessed it, SCTV guy. He directed on SCTV in the early 1980s. He directs 17 episodes of this show. He ends up directing a lot of television after this that David in the notes quotes says that just isn't very good, including a fair number of spin-offs like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV series, Erie, Indiana, The Other Dimension, The New Addams Family, and the 1990s Lassie remake. I take issue with you putting television that isn't very good in the same sentence as those shows, all of which I watched. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show, is straight up good.
Okay.
It's Peter Scolari is in Rick Moranis' role, and he fucking rocks. Little baby gay Thomas Dekker is in that show. It is a really good, like, high concept sci-fi comedy show that fucking rules.
I will accept that
take
one.
those words out of your mouth.
I will accept that
show
one.
Rocks.
Erie, Indiana, The Other Dimension is a boot.
Okay, no, but I don't remember a single episode of that show. But the existence of that show, I think, is like, there's good reason for it because it only exists because the original Erie, Indiana, another Canadian show that like went under the radar in America, but then like popped up like 4 years later, became like a surprise hit years after it was done, rerunning in America. And they were sort of like, well, the kids in the original show are grown up now. How are we going to do this? So they spin it off into a new show with new kids. The first episode starts where they like use archive footage of the original kids from the original show, dub them over, but like coming through like a message from the TV saying that they're from another dimension from the other Erie, Indiana, the original Erie, Indiana, and being like, our weirdness from our original TV series is seeping into your direction. And so now we have to pass the torch on to you guys to kind of carry it on, which I just think is a genius way to like continue a show that was like wrapped and canceled like 4 years earlier that you couldn't possibly pick up, but still like finding a way to connect to it without just rebooting it. I love that they did that. I'm sure the rest of it was like dog shit, but I love that that was how they like set up their spin-off sequel to that original show, just to figure out how to continue something that was kind of out of their control, that it had already been done, you know?
All right, well, at least give me the Lassie remake was garbage. It was.
I just want to interject this about Erie, Indiana, because this is news to me that it even had a sequel show, because I was a Joe Dante super fan, and he was involved with the original Erie, Indiana, and I think Erie, Indiana and Maniac Mansion are definitely kind of soulmates.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone from the original show was really involved in the new one, in that sequel one. And again, it was like 98. It was like, 4 or 5 years after the original show. Like, I love that it happened. I don't think it was a good product, but I think it speaks to the power of that original show, that it was like,
absolutely. Yeah. It became a hit after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah. People discovered it enough that they felt the desire to make a sequel show. Yeah. Anyway,
all right. I retract my statement for everything except for the 1990s Lassie remake, because it was garbage the first time, it was garbage the second time, it was garbage in the 90s.
David's a famous Lassie hater for some reason.
Famous Lassie hater. Fall down a well, Lassie.
I'm just amazed by how much Canadian-produced television Derek watched growing up. Like,
I told you. The fucking, I mean, Canada, a lot of Canadian stuff showed up on Fox Kids. Yeah. And like I said, I was an avid watcher of all the Family Channel spinoffs.
I'm not saying anything negative. Let's be clear. I'm not,
It was
Joe
cheap.
Flaherty
was cheap.
later in a Canadian-produced Police Academy live-action series. So there we go.
I didn't know that existed. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I did not appreciate it. And I like Joe Flaherty, but that did not work for me.
This is before Freaks and Geeks,
yeah.
mind you. So,
I loved Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah.
I have pulled some information about the cast just because, as Chris mentioned, this is such an important show for the history of what Levy in particular would go on to do. We've already talked about Joe Flaherty. He plays the title character, Dr. Fred Edison. Not the title character, because there's no title character, but he plays Dr. Fred Edison, who
plays Dr. Maniac Mansion.
Dr. Maniac Mansion. Wow, I'm here with my aunt, my Midwestern aunt. I was watching Dr. Maniac Mansion. He's a prolific character actor. We've already talked about a lot of his stuff. Chris mentioned her earlier, but Deborah Thieker is Casey Edison, who plays Fred's wife. She's fantastic. Maniac Mansion is her most significant stretch on TV, but she has been everywhere, and she sort of got into the Christopher Guest, Eugene Levy collaboration circle and was in that world for pretty much all of the films that they did. Kathleen Robertson plays Tina Edison. Some previous credits as a background guest star, but Maniac Mansion is kind of her first big break. She went on to portray Claire Arnold in Beverly Hills 90210 seasons 4 through 7, the back half there. And she was the series lead against Taye Diggs in the TNT procedural Murder in the First. I've never heard of.
That's a terrible. I'm sorry.
I haven't heard of Murder in the First, but I do know every straight friend of mine was in love with her on Beverly Hills 90210, and I'd be like, you know where she got her start? And
my
I'd
God.
be like, don't fucking talk about Maniac Mansion.
No.
And I'd be like, Maniac Mansion.
What?
And like, Chris, what is with you in this Maniac Mansion show? I'm amazed I have any friends. I really am.
Well, Dr. Maniac Mansion is your friend. We have Ave Phillips playing Ike Edison. Not a lot to do in this episode in particular. And this is his most significant credited work. He did some theater stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
He's fine. He maybe is probably the weakest one out of all of these people, I would argue, I think.
Yeah, I would say he's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine in kind of like Peter Brady kind of way.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Sure.
He's fine.
And then Derek, will you tell us about George Busa?
beautiful man. I love him. I mean, I hate his hair in this.
Yeah,
but
bad
beautiful
hair
man
type.
generally. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. He's not as much of an SC TV guy. He was in one episode. Exactly one.
Not even.
So I guess that was his connection.
Not even real SCTV. He was on the second spin-off version, SCTV Network 90. So he was like in the last iteration.
So he probably was cast just because of what he looks like and his acting ability, honestly.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, he has done a lot of stuff that is relevant to many of our interests. So he's done voice credits for both Star Wars droids and Star Wars Ewoks. He was the voice for Babar, the colonial elephant. And then after Maniac Mansion, is probably his best known credit to the majority of people is that he voices Beast on the X-Men cartoon and then reprised it in X-Men 97 as well. But he also was just like on many, many cartoons. He would be your guy for any like big beefy voice for ogres and bears and Santa and whatnot. So like he's shown up on a lot of voice acting things for those types of characters.
A lot of Santa credits on his IMDb. I was shocked. And
I mean, are you shocked?
Well, no, I
think
guess
it
I'm
makes
not.
sense.
I'm not shocked. I'm shocked that he
Yeah.
wasn't Santa when we talked about Santa in Smallville. Like, I would cast this man today to be Santa. Like,
Yeah, truly. He's a beautiful man.
a beautiful man, and he looks like Santa.
I feel like too, like he and John Hemphill had the most thankless role on this show because he had to do that voice all the time.
Oh my
Ooh,
God.
the voices
Could not be an easy voice. Like to be, I guess he was in his 30s at this point when he made Maniac Mansion, to have to do like a 4-year-old's voice
Oh my
talking
God.
Yeah.
like this. It can't be easy.
And-
And then John
Yeah.
Hemphill was in a fly outfit all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, that was funny is that like that making a video for Family Channel that I referenced earlier, they like talk about like part of the smashing success of Maniac Mansion, of course, must be due to George Buza's performance as this young toddler. And it's just like, I mean, I guess so. And in that video, he's talking about how like, you know, he prepared by observing a lot of kids
my
and
God.
they sent him to daycare like 4 weeks
That
before
sounds
filming.
Yikes.
Nightmarish. Wow.
Right. I don't know if maybe he was joking, like, haha, they sent me to daycare, but also that would be the perfect place to like
Oh, yeah.
observe kids. And I
Yeah.
do think it is funny to think of like show this like giant man rolling up to daycare, like, I need to like watch some kids for an actor role
Right.
for a few
Yeah,
weeks.
that's-
Like
Ugh.
nothing
Ooh.
sus
That's an
about that.
SVU episode waiting to happen. That's not
Yeah.
good.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. He does a lot of good physical comedy as Turner Edison, though, too. I that's what
He's
I'm going to
great.
say.
He is. I think he's one of the I'd say him or Hemphill are the comedic MVPs of the show, because Flaherty, as genius as he is, a lot of the times he has to play it like straight.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
anyone who knows his work is like oh God, I'm forgetting the Dracula character, Count Floyd, on SCTV, and which he reprised that on the Ed Grimley cartoon show. You know, like he can be a very broad performer, and every now and then he gets the chance to do that, but he's largely the straight man on this show, which is, you know, whenever he gets the chance to shine and be goofy, it's great. But yeah, it is Buza and Hemphill's show in terms of large comedic acts in this.
The one thing I will say about Buza is, like, if you are new to this show, I do think you have to calibrate yourself a little bit, because it is a little bit off-putting seeing George Buza show up, and when he's doing the voice that he's doing, like, it's not his fault, but it's basically the stereotypical performance any actor doing like an Oscar bait performance portraying someone with a mental disability is doing. Like, it comes off like that. Makes sense for what he's actually doing in the context of this show and this character, but like it is a little bit unfortunate when you watch it that it's just like, oh no, I've seen this in every Oscar baity drama, unfortunately.
That didn't
It feels
even
a little
occur to
bit
me
weird.
until just now. Wow,
It's a
that's
little
an
weird.
excellent point. Yeah.
It's a little weird. Yeah. And again, it's like, it's not like, I don't know what else he would do. Like that's what the performance is, but I think that more speaks to like bad performances in other things that basically doing what he's doing here. Unfortunately.
Yeah, because he's not acting like a character with Arrested Development. He's acting like a 4-year-old. And
right.
But it's, especially if you've seen a lot of other Arrested Development characters, not from the show Arrested Development, but actual characters who have like delayed development. It's hard not to see this and think that's what you're seeing, but it is truly and honestly not. And once you can break that, as Chris did, because he watched this, you know, younger, I think that's probably the better way to watch it, was live and young.
Yeah.
He has I forget what episode it is, but Turner has this moment where he's like playing and he's like, that part's done now, which made me laugh so much because as a kid, like when I was playing something and I was done with it, I would always just say, okay, that part's done now.
Yep.
And it just struck me as being so true. For some reason that like that line has stuck with me for over like 30 years in his performance of that. So it does like ring true as to like how kids are,
Very
but it is just like, it is jarring to like watch the performance.
Yeah. Me and Dad had a man talk.
Yeah.
Feeling better?
Yeah. Me and Dad had a man talk.
It's great. And the thing is, he is hilariously funny, is the other thing about this.
Yeah, it's really funny.
So it's a little bit weird for me to think about him being the Beast, because, like, that is probably how I also knew him the best. And they are so discordant in my mind. They are very, very different performances.
Yeah.
All right, a couple other...
Is he in live action in one of the X-Men films? Does he pop up?
I did...
No,
okay.
no, he does not. It's only ever been Kelsey Grammer and Nicholas Hoult.
I mean, I felt like he had a cameo in the first movie or something.
Oh, maybe he had like not as Beast. Maybe he had a cameo. Oh, no, I see what you're saying.
I think he was a guard. I think he was a
a
guard in the first X-Men. I did look at all these folks' IMDb's, but I only pulled out things that I was particularly interested in, like ogres.
Yeah, he did cameo. It looks like let's see what character he played. We're gonna find this out live right now.
I think it was a guard. Money on guard. Let's go guard.
No, I think you're thinking of Ty Olsson in X2.
I am thinking of Ty Olsson.
I'm always thinking of Ty Olsson.
Nope. He plays a trucker in the first X-Men.
Oh yeah, he picks up Rogue. Yeah. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are Ty Olsson. Definitely clocked him in X2 though, because he's the Magneto's guard. Yes.
Always
I believe Ty Olsson just married DJ Qualls, by the way.
He did.
So.
Absolutely.
Well done, DJ Qualls. Well done.
You've made a
look, guys. If you need a third, or fourth or fifth, we're all waiting.
I love that's how Derek took it, because my thoughts were, Olsson, you've made a powerful and annoying enemy today. All right, couple other actors I want to talk about. Mary Charlotte Wilcox plays Idella. Shocking information, SCTV alum on a bunch of episodes. And then we've talked about him, but John Hemphill plays Harry the Fly. He was an SCTV alum, mostly on Network 90 and the SCTV channel, so the two follow-up series. His past credits include Bizarre, a sketch show from the early 80s, Erie, Indiana, the real one, and most recently is best known for his portrayal as Bob, the owner and operator of Bob's Garage from Schitt's Creek.
I can't say enough great things about John Hemphill. Everything this man does makes me laugh.
True story.
There's something about a comedic performance where there's muttering to yourself, where no one is listening, that he is an absolute master of. And in Schitt's Creek, as Bob, he has this very specific Bob way of moving.
The little dance that he basically does, like
yes, that is comedic genius. Yes. And the first time, I got into Schitt's Creek during the pandemic, like everyone else, I just heard the name of it before then, was like, I'm not watching that.
Right.
And then little did I know how wrong I was. But when I started watching it and John Hemphill popped up, my head like nearly rocketed off of my shoulders. I was so happy to see him like working in something.
Yeah.
And not to mention something so great with like all these people who I loved. John Hemphill, man, Harry the Fly is great, because another great thing is like the Family Channel and everything. Like, he is the Harry character before his accident is basically a degenerate gambler who is talking with his bookie when Turner has his accident, like, because he wasn't paying attention to Turner. And one of the great scenes in the pilot is like Idella says, don't feed him any sweets. And there's just this insert shot of Turner eating the largest chocolate bar you'll ever see. And it is comedy gold. But anyway, Harry's a degenerate gambler, and like his, and his inattention to Turner basically leads to his and Turner's downfall.
Honestly, considering how weird this show is, I think it says a lot that the most cartoonish thing in this episode is that the cut to the giant fucking candy bar. It is so funny. It is such a cartoon thing.
Like, yeah, like, this is a pilot episode I've seen a lot, right? And like, it's one of those things that I've seen so much that I basically have it memorized.
Sure.
And just watching it again, I watched it like, I guess 3 weeks ago, Derek, when you and I were hanging out, or however long ago that was when we watched it.
Oh, no.
What even is time in 2025? But I watched it immediately before recording today, and it is such a confident pilot.
Yeah.
It is so like,
Yeah.
it is a mission statement that says like, all right, here is what this is. And we're not going to lie to you. This is just what this series is going to be. And it is so self-assured that I really just have nothing but respect for it. That like, almost like the next episode, which is more of a typical TV episode, is almost kind of a bring down.
Yeah, it's a little jarring.
Because you're,
Yeah.
you know, but there's no way they could maintain the energy that they established in the pilot. Instead, they kind of like draw it out over 3 seasons, and it's still fantastic. But it is a really, it's the type of pilot I think people should be talking about and studying. I know everyone right now is like, in drama, let's study the Breaking Bad pilot. And I'm just going to be completely ridiculous and say, in comedy, I say study the 30 Rock pilot, study the Arrested Development pilot, and study the Maniac Mansion pilot for, contemporary comedies. Thank you.
Well, I mean, like, when are we ever going to have another opportunity to do a pilot episode on this podcast,
Yeah.
Right.
Like, when are pilot episodes gimmick episodes? Because, like, this thing, it's a clip show, it's a fake clip show, and it's just, like, makes fun of itself being a pilot. Like, it's
multiple
so
gimmicks.
wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that is a ballsiness that just other shows don't try. I mean, to take risks like this out of the gate for already something, and I think that's kind of where the fact that it's Canadian and it's lower budget and it's obscure kind of really works to its benefit, because the audacity of this show would not work in if any other factors were happening.
Well, and there are, thousands of television shows, so I can't say this with any certainty, but I did a job on trying to figure out if any other pilot episodes would be qualifiers for this podcast. And there certainly are listicles, Chris, of people who have written about weird pilots, but they are weird pilots to weird shows. Like, isn't it weird that everyone's a dog, but they're dogs in this show? Or that they're the Amish and they have superpowers, or that they're flight attendants from LAX in 200 years from now, and they're sort of sci-fi. But like, the weirdness is the show, not just the pilot. And I don't mean to insult a good show, Chris. I'm on board with you, but this is essentially Home Improvement. Like, it's a wacky dad. It's not stand-up comedy. It's sketch comedy. It's a family that interact with them. It's normal sit-down hijinks 60 to 75% of the time. And then some really big swings, but the first episode is one of those big swings. And that's what makes this a particularly wild thing for us to talk about.
Yeah.
It would be like if the first episode of Community was like their Modern Warfare episode. It's a show that does stuff like this, but that your setup is doing a thing like that. That's what makes it so shocking and surprising.
Right. Or everyone was speaking Spanish the whole episode, and that's why Jeff had to find a study group. Like that sort of big swing, but then it never would have been greenlit. Like, that's the other problem, is that you almost have to assume that this big swing was taken because Atlantis had already invested the money into getting this thing going. So this wasn't a pilot for sale.
Yeah, I guess like that's the pilot problem, right? Because I've heard other people talk about this before, that it's like pilot episodes in a weird way, even though they're made to be the first episode and to like get a show sold, they're often like not a great way to judge a series, because they're like kind of meant like classically, not as much maybe in the streaming age where you just like things go straight to series and stuff a little bit more, but like classically, like the pilot is, as much as it is narratively setting things up, is it's also like a pitch to executives to try to sell their show. And that doesn't necessarily always make for a good first episode or kicking off point or inciting incident for a narrative. It does sometimes, but oftentimes it doesn't. And so like for this, because they're not trying to sell their show to investors and to executives and to a network, it's like, okay, it's just the first thing that we're making. So we can make it whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, I think another thing that's really interesting about this pilot is it's not establishing plot, or it's not really establishing what the driving story of this series is going to be about. It's all about establishing tone, which is a very interesting thing that I don't really can think. I can't really think of other pilots that do that because, like, again, like Ike has maybe two lines in this
Right.
entire episode. Casey doesn't get to do much. Idella doesn't get to do much. Claire gets like one moment. It's mainly about Turner and Fred, and then like there's a bunch of comedic vignettes, but the comedic vignettes show off like kind of the feeling that you're going to get from watching this show, and that's another thing that really kind of reinforces itself in my brain as being why this episode stands out.
Right. I will say, though, that the pilot episode of this series needed to do one important thing, or maybe two important things. Tell us why one person is a fly and one is a giant man baby. And it does that deftly. And I will say, like, that is something that it needed to do regardless to how weird it was. Yeah. And that is accomplished, I think, very effectively.
Yeah, I mean, it's the events that you would expect to see in a pilot episode. It's just like, it's just relegated to one clip because, again, this is like a fake clip show.
Yeah.
And that's just like, all right, we're done. Now we can just get to the fun stuff. Yeah. The rest of it doesn't really matter narratively.
And just like the response to the characters in the show is to like laugh at this tragedy, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, if you think about it, if you were watching if you were watching the normal version of this that wasn't presented as a clip show and you were just seeing those events play out in real time, they would have to play it kind of dramatically in a way. Yeah. Like it is traumatic that a kid got aged up into an adult and a man got turned into a fly, and you'd have to have the family finding that out and being horrified and figure out how they're going to continue. And it's sort of like they just skip over all that stuff. It happened, and it's like this is meant to be years after that's happened or whatever, and they're just like, oh yeah, I remember that. This is all normal life for us now.
All right, well, we've talked around it a lot, but the gimmick of the episode is it's a clip show. I want to do a little bit of background on clip shows. They've been around for a long time. I mean, as long as modern television has been around, the clip show has been around. But the history of the idea of what we know as a clip show actually goes all the way back to film serials. So it used to be when folks would go to the theater to see a film serial, they'd always get a little Last Time On, which is why we have Last Time On in television. But the practice began with Republic Pictures serials Robinson Crusoe of Clipper Island. Because of adverse weather conditions around filming, they were delayed and they needed to stretch out their time. This sounds familiar for anyone who's listened to us talk about bottle episodes. And what they did is they recut existing footage and said, maybe people are brand new to the series, so we're going to like reintroduce them to it with all of these clips that they had put together. Not only was this convenient, but folks found it to be a great cost-cutting measure. And so the idea of using a clip show in that way became very popular and would fall into the modern use of clip shows. Today, clip shows are a little less frequent. Their sort of heyday was the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and they fell into a few discrete categories. The first of which is the compilation episode, where past events with a framing narrative are given like a full and regular episode. Think the Golden Girls eat a cheesecake and remember that time they went to jail. That's a compilation episode clip show. Then you've got the hosted compilation episode. This is the one that's parodied by The Simpsons for the 138th episode spectacular. But like, imagine Archie Bunker looking directly at you and being like, wow, what good times we had. And then reliving them, which is something that literally happened on that show, and is what Troy McClure is parodying. This has also happened in Cheers. It's a big one to do around milestone episodes to sort of like celebrate how far we've come. We have the recap episode. This was very popular, obviously, in anime. This is sort of like telling the story so far. Seinfeld also did this before their big finale. A lot of folks will do something before their big finale to like catch everybody up. Some clipsos have used deleted scenes, which is kind of interesting. Maybe the story you didn't get to see, which I think is actually a little bit of a fun way of doing this. And then there is the Up Its Own Ass documentary style clip show. The only one that I've ever seen aired was The West Wing did this in lieu of a regular episode. And boo, West Wing.
I'm so glad you brought that up, David, because if you didn't, I was going to, and I love The West Wing.
Sure.
But wow.
Boo. Here's the deal.
Can I bring up another example?
Yes,
that's
do you
sort of
have
similar,
one?
but I think a better version of it.
I looked for one.
It's not exactly the
Okay,
same
okay.
because it's not a true clip show, but it's sort of the same thing. There's an episode of Power Rangers RPM, which is a very like the post-apocalyptic like Terminator riff season that fucking rocks. But because it was a post-apocalyptic Terminator season, it famously went very over budget.
Ugh.
And so one episode that they did is they basically did a behind-the-scenes episode that fills a slot.
Okay.
So if you would see it in reruns or whatever, it would do that. But the thing is, it still wasn't a true clip show because they still filmed new stuff. It was just instead of filming narrative things, they just sort of filmed just action scenes out of context.
Cool, though.
And then the actors would just sort of step out as their character explaining how they film action scenes, basically.
See, that's cool.
So I think
That's cool.
Power Rangers did it better than The West Wing.
Well, okay, undoubtedly.
Just saying.
Nobody wants to hear from a politician who couldn't make it, who then got a consulting gig with Aaron Sorkin about how they like write things. You didn't write things, you just thought of words. Calm down. And also, it should have been a full episode. There's a whole story behind that, and one day I will make Derek watch Isaac and Ishmael, and we'll be able to talk about it. But for now, I will just say that leads us...
Oh, I'll come on for that one.
Okay,
by the way.
it's so bad. The last category I want to talk about is the one that we're here today to talk about, which is the fake clip show, which uses all the trappings of a clip show, except that it's just not real. All the clips are newly filmed. A few other television series have done this, and it is usually very effective. But what I will say about the 10th anniversary special is that I can't think of another example that uses as many of the different clip show tropes as this one uses, with folks looking directly into camera or talking to each other as actors, which is the sort of thing that you'd get from that sort of like Cheers actors talking about themselves, the behind the scenes of it all, but also reliving clips. It is sort of hitting all of these buckets, and I think that's a unique aspect to this episode.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the brilliance. And even just at the end where, the quote unquote dream sequence that started at the beginning of the episode, Fred says, I dreamt we had a 10th, we had a sitcom and our 10th season was on the air. And then Casey just says, let's try to get through the first season first, and then, it's just a nice little sting at the end. But yeah, it really does like promise a goofy television time to come. And that's what Maniac Mansion really delivered over its 3 seasons. I think the first season is the best of the show. The second season is the most experimental of the show, and then the third season is still good, but it really has the feeling of people trying to get their hands into the pie and trying to turn the show into something it would never be.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think this part of the fun statement that this episode makes as the first episode is that it's not just a fake clip show, which already would be like a fun idea to do. But like the fake clip show being framed as a like commemoration 10th anniversary special. So it's like kind of putting a line in the sand that it's almost like making it very clear that it's like, we know we're going to be weird and probably a cult show that's surely not going to run 10 years. We'll never actually have our opportunity to do a 10th anniversary special. So we're going to tell you right out front that we know that and then have fun with that idea, basically.
Yeah.
Like I think that makes a clear statement of like how self-aware the show is,
Yeah.
And Eugene Levy, if you're listening, you could do a little homage to this and film an actual pilot to Maniac Mansion, set it 10 years in the past, get a little kid to play Turner. That could be a fun way of paying homage to this great thing that was an important part of your career.
Sure.
Also, you owe me $10, Eugene Levy. That's not true, Derek. It was a lie. It was a joke just for you.
Everyone just watch Maniac Mansion.
Oh my gosh.
Go on the Internet Archive, deal with the shitty audio and video quality.
Yeah.
It's still like, someone had a cleaned up version of the pilot. That's probably as good as you're going to get. Because also they did repeat the first season with the laugh track and laugh track.
Wait, they added it after the fact?
They added it after the fact, yeah, but the versions that are out online of the first and second season that I've seen all are the laugh track list ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can
Good.
you can find it
So-
if you want. You should not, but
Yeah.
you can find it, Derek.
Yeah.
No information about making of this episode because it was all making of the series, unfortunately. I couldn't find anything like very specific about the 10th anniversary special because it's all sort of molded into the series itself.
I do know that Time magazine, when at the end of 1990 they did mention Maniac Mansion as one of the year's best
Okay.
shows, and that was probably the most acclaim that the show ever got. I think it won a Cable Ace Award, which was the big cable awards, or it was nominated for one. Somewhere around here I do have like a Cable Guide magazine where there's Joe Flaherty for some reason dressed up like Sherlock Holmes on the set of Maniac Mansion. And they had an article about, but articles for this show were very few and far between. That's why I didn't even know Entertainment Weekly ever did one. I know in my collection of Maniac Mansion merchandise, there is just 2 magazines and the video game, and that's it. I do know that episodes of the show, 2 episodes, were released at least in Canada and weirdly enough in Japan. There is a Japanese VHS release for Maniac Mansion that I hope to find one day.
Wow.
Because I think that would
That's
be
incredible.
that would be amazing. I don't know how it made its way to Japan. I don't know if it ever aired on Japanese television. I don't know if the VHS compilation, I believe it's called The Love Connection, is dubbed in English or Japanese or has subtitles or what. But I would love to know. And if anyone at home can answer these questions, please let us know. It's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that one of the other things that's interesting about this one is that like it also is a dream sequence episode too. We didn't really mention that. It's technically an entire dream sequence
It's
episode.
true. That is
Yeah.
true.
Like that's how they justify the 10-year anniversary thing.
Yeah.
Every cliche we're throwing in
Yeah,
the book.
we
truly.
are.
Yeah.
We truly
Every
are.
gimmick.
We truly are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the 10-year anniversary, and because it's right off the bat, you have Joe Flaherty like mugging to the camera and stuff like 10 years. Who'd have thought we've been in the air for 10 years? And then they immediately go into like talking about like we have to have our 10th anniversary dinner.
So
Oh,
funny.
and then
So
like
stupid.
making jokes about like you can't bring your new boyfriend in because he's not written into the scene. Like
Yeah.
it's so funny again, like making the statement of like, yeah, we're gonna be this fucking meta. It's like fine, you're gonna have to get used to it. And then transitioning from that into like, we can't go to the restaurant, so I've got to sit around watching home movies. And now we can't watch the home movies, so we've got to talk to each other and have actual flashbacks. Like, yeah, like you were saying, it goes through every single clip show trope as it goes along.
Yeah. I do want to just give a little bit of a moment to, the start of the episode obviously starts with Fred and Casey mugging to the camera. But before that, we actually get this title sequence and this song by Mary Margaret O'Hara. And gosh, it's a bit long for opening credits, but and these are the most boring version, Derek, of season 2, season 3, Chef's Kiss, incredible opening credits.
Okay.
But this song is remarkable. It is a very pretty song, not particularly interesting in words, but she has an amazing voice. The melody is very nice. I think that this is such a nice way to open up a family sitcom. Truly and honestly, this is making me feel like late 80s, early 90s home.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Jane Siberry may also be known probably best for a song she had on the Crow soundtrack called "It Can't Rain All the Time."
What?
So that's probably her way she's best known to American audiences. But I mean, the Maniac Mansion, I'm not familiar with her other music, admittedly, but the Maniac Mansion theme song is very like beautiful and warbly and very like 1990s NPR, very pledge breaky, it has that very specific kind of sound to it, and it's very wistful, and it's not at all wacky, which too, I mean, it's just there's a real tonal dissonance between the theme song and the series too, which is wild.
Yeah.
And just another like weird little quirk. And again, they do change the credits every year. But this first one definitely has the most connection to the game. And it is just like a beautiful theme song. There was never a Maniac Mansion soundtrack, obviously, but I used to have an MP3 rip of this somewhere on a hard drive.
I'm gonna send help for you. Like, wow.
Yeah, like, look, man, I was deep into this show.
I love this. I love this so much.
Yeah,
You
I
genuinely
really
might be the
biggest fan.
The show's biggest fan.
Like no, I'm telling you, because like one of the first things I ever did when I went online was look up Maniac Mansion, and there was this incredible, it's long gone because it was like GeoCities or something, but there was this amazing Maniac Mansion website, and it wasn't like maniacmansion.com, it was like, some college thing, then / Maniac Mansion, so I wouldn't even know where to begin to look for it on the Internet Archive, but it had so many behind the scenes pictures, and it was a fan run site, and like downloadables, and and all sorts of crazy stuff on it. And I remember it took forever to load on my computer, and
of course.
Yes,
Those
but
were the days.
that person is the world's biggest Maniac Mansion fan. So wherever they are, shout out.
Look us up.
Yeah.
Well, as Derek said, they have to resort to flashbacks since they can't make it to dinner. They've got to go out. This is where we get that flashback of Turner turning into a giant man and Harry turning into a fly. We've talked about the comedic chocolate bar, but anything else about this like first flashback of the series?
I think it's smart to get the David Cronenberg reference out of the way because people are going to make that connection anyway. Like they do that and they get that out of the way, and then they just like solve the two weirdest things, like answer the two biggest questions people have, get all that out of the way, and then it's like we've done it, we can move on now. Which I appreciate.
Yeah, I liked that as well. From here, the memory upsets Turner and he goes and locks himself in his room, and then we get some really great Flaherty acting. Fred comes up to comfort him and pretends to be, in order, Bing Crosby, Gregory Peck, and Broderick Crawford.
It's Bing Crosby. Yeah, dear Bingle. I want you to open up the door. Be a good boy and don't let me bang, bang, bang on the door. Ba, 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 boo.
No.
Turner, it's Gregory Peck. I want you to open the door. Your father requested me.
No.
Turner, it's Broderick Crawford. Come on, open up that door. Get your 714. Open it up. I'll break it down. 714.
No.
Broderick Crawford is someone I had to look up. I do know who Gregory Peck is, and of course I know who Bing Crosby is. But Bing Crosby sang White Christmas. Gregory Peck was Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. Did either of you know who Broderick Crawford was?
I couldn't understand the words that he said.
Oh.
I did not at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I just appreciated that this is how he's going to bond with his child, by bringing up these performers that no 4-year-old would possibly know.
Right.
And the brilliance of the bit is that Turner is just overjoyed by the impersonations.
Yeah. Broderick Crawford, should you be interested, was sort of a early film everyman. He was sort of a tough guy in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and he's the original Lenny in Of Mice and Men. He is also, because of his acting, the namesake of Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey's first name is Broderick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There you go. That's what I got for you.
Yeah. After that, though, is when it's like the best joke of the episode, because that's when we start getting, when we get the JFK assassination home movie.
Yes.
What the fuck, man? It's so good.
I got to, I don't know if that was the first time you saw it, Derek, but I remember watching that with you and you just being like, what the
that was
fuck?
So
it was
the first
just
time I had seen that episode. Yeah, because it's like it's out of nowhere.
It's so funny.
And like the rest of the show's humor up to that point is not that dark, really. Like the dark, like technically the stuff that happens to Turner and Harry is like kind of dark, but like they treat it so light that it's not treated like that. And then it's just like it's so, because I think it takes you a little bit to figure out, because they even throw out the 1963 date, and I don't know that necessarily clocks with you immediately, because you're not going to expect that they would go there. And then it's sort of like, this is just me and my aunties and we're so silly. And then it's just like, they're on a grassy knoll. Like what? And all the people in the background like ducking, and the horrified reaction of the mom's face is just like the gradual unveiling and like dawning on you, the audience, and everyone in the episodes, like realization of like what that you're watching the JFK assassination happening, and Idella literally doesn't even realize that she has that footage. It's so good, and so dark.
And
and the way it's filmed, like it like, you know, everyone's in like period clothing, and it has like the aesthetic of the Zapruder film, and just like it's really it's a real commitment to the bit for like what is essentially like a minute portion of the episode. Right. But yeah, it is my favorite joke in the episode, hands down, because it's so unexpected.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what's funny too is like, then that sort of basically sets the stage of being like, I know we said the whole joke was that we're a clip show, but we're like not going to be a clip show anymore, because everything they show here going forward, it's not stuff that would have, if this show in the universe of this dream had existed for 10 years, this is all stuff that would predate the TV show.
Yes.
This is just backstory flashback stuff. So they've already abandoned the clip show aspect of it anyway at this point.
Yeah, because then we get the reveal of like Casey meeting Fred's parents, and same thing.
Yep. This was, even though I did like the JFK assassination, this was my joke of the episode, was them starting to do the flashback, and then Casey being like, I'm not ready. And then the effect stops, and she like provides maybe one more sentence of information, and then looks impatiently at you, the viewer, and the camera, and is like, okay, flashback now. That was really, really solid to me, and I really, really appreciated that. This sequence with Fred and Casey meeting Fred's parents, or I guess Fred is already known as parents, this was so stupid and so wonderful. This is great sketch work. I truly and honestly loved this.
But it's also like on the Christian Family Channel, and it's a whole scene about men coming over James Joyce passages being read to them.
Yes.
And then like teaching your dad how to come too. Like, it's fucking incredible.
They're so horny. Yeah. Oh my God. It's so great. I think this is where in my notes I wrote, this was on YTV. Like it was less about the Family Channel, which I certainly have issue with, but like YTV is like Nickelodeon, like it's young TV. That was the part that got me a little gagged, and I was a little surprised about.
And the show does this stuff constantly.
A lot
is the thing. Like so it is constantly doing that. But and he just like, you know, Fred's father is so horny, he just turns to his wife and just says, "Learn it." It's like, you need to learn how to make me come by reciting James Joyce to me. Yeah. Thank you.
That dad, by the way, I recognized him instantly. It's Colin Fox, who was in the 90s Goosebumps TV show. He was in the Haunted Mask pilot and then in the sequel as well.
Oh my gosh.
So he's like the shopkeeper that's like the holder of the haunted masks that ends up being like a friend to the kids who are dealing with it and everything.
Derek, well done.
I'm sure there's so much crossover between like every 90s show and Maniac Mansion's cast.
Well, especially every 90s show filmed in Vancouver.
Yeah. I couldn't find him, Derek, so well done you. I couldn't find either of these two actors because there was no credits on the version I watched, and then the IMDb missed these folks. We're already at the end of the episode because there's not that much to talk about because it is still using the trappings of a clip show. Fred has successfully comforted Turner, and they return downstairs, and
he comforts Turner by just saying gibberish, basically. Sure. It's just like, I don't know, we're a family and we just like do everything together. It's like we laugh together. Like that, yeah.
But that did sell me on who Fred is. Again, as Chris said, like it is telling me the tone of the series, which a pilot does need to do. And like he is a bumbling dad, but he's gonna always find his way in the end. And so like that was nice. I appreciated it.
Fred is a super, super loving father. I don't think he's a good father, but I mean, he wants to be a good father. I mean, but he's not the best at parenthood, which is really fun too.
Oh, who are you? The OSHA inspector? He's a great dad. One industrial accident and he's like dead to you. All right. And then I don't know. Joe Flaherty breaks character to thank his TV family, thank the crew, and thank all the fans for making Maniac Mansion such a big hit.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, I don't usually step out of character. But this being our 10th anniversary special, there are a lot of very wonderful people I'd like to thank. My lovely TV family on Maniac Mansion. A terrific crew. And mostly, I'd like to thank you, our faithful viewers, for making Maniac Mansion #1 in your heart.
Fred!
And a consistent 48 in the ratings.
Fred!
Good night, everybody!
Fred!
Huh?
It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Come to bed.
Oh, I had the most bizarre dream. I dreamt the whole family starred in its own TV show.
Our own TV show.
Yeah, and your name was Casey.
My name is Casey.
Oh, right. And it was our 10th anniversary special.
Oh, honey, come to bed.
This is so goofy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really funny.
The world failed Maniac Mansion,
my gosh.
I think. And, you know, for as long as I'm able to give oxygen, I'm going to speak about this show and try to get people to tune into it. I mean, you know, I've given up hope that we'll ever have any kind of physical media release of it, but if someone could just, you know, release some masters and put them on the Internet Archive so people can see this. Yeah.
I would love to see it in higher quality, obviously, but even like one of the things that I think is interesting is because this is presented as sort of a dream sequence, like, you know, at the end he wakes up and it's sort of like, oh, I dreamt the whole thing, you know, whatever. Yeah. But like visually it's actually really well done because considering this is your first as an audience introduction to the mansion, the episode starts where it's just like him talking like basically on a black stage.
Yeah.
And then the lights slowly light up as characters enter, kind of unveiling the mansion to you. And then at the end of this, they like go back to black. So it's just a spotlight on him on a completely black stage. Like it looks good, like visually, like it's really smartly put together. It's just hard to see it when you're watching it on like 240p quality on YouTube, you know?
Yeah. And I do love the set design of the show. Like it's great. And like, you know, there's all the Atlantis stuff aside with, you know, who maintains ownership and then Lucasfilm and then everything. Like it occurred to me too that there's a big music rights issue with the show as well because it did use the first season used a ton of pop songs as well, like classic pop songs, but like there would never be the ability to release this show. And so like the best we can hope for is a laugh track free version of a master being leaked to the internet by someone, Eugene Levy, you know, or, you know, please, like, the 10 fans of the show would like decent copies of it so they could watch it. Yeah. Because I think more people would be inclined to watch it and get into it if there were watchable versions of it available.
Yeah, sure. I hope that by us giving the show some air on gimmicks, we'll make that 10 fans an 11 fandom now.
Yeah,
we'll make it a whole 11 fans.
I think we've now spoken about this show for 3 times the length of the actual episode, and I think the great thing about that is to really like drive the point home that this is something that is special and that will be worth your time. And I think one of the great things that Gimmicks does is like it's not just about the well-known shows and like, you know, the blockbuster shows and their gimmick episodes. Like I think you both should be applauded for like taking a chance on a completely unknown show like Maniac Mansion and give that like the spotlight here on Gimmicks. I think that I think you both deserve kind of a pat on the back for that, because I know as a fan of Maniac Mansion who would always love to see people getting into this more, you know, like any attention it can get is great, and to have it on a show like this is phenomenal.
Thank you. Well, I still say the best episodes that we've ever done have been True Calling and So Weird so far, and I think Maniac Mansion's probably going to be up there too. So like the shows that no one's ever heard of are usually the most interesting ones to talk about, I would say. And usually like just like secretly some of the best TV out there.
Truly and honestly.
I totally agree. Show rules.
Well, Chris, some of that thanks also goes to you since you're the one who suggested this. So thank you for bringing it onto our radar. any final thoughts before we sort of wrap up today's episode?
If I can, just say one thing to the listeners, if I can say one thing to the listeners, is that, the game is a classic for so many reasons and very important in the video game industry. The show isn't, but it should be.
Yeah.
The show should be, comedy nerds, give the show some of your time. I think you'll really be happy that you did.
For real.
I agree.
Well, Chris, hopefully this is not the last time people hear from you. Where else can folks find you and the great things that you do out in the world?
You can find me on your favorite social media outlet at Sci-Fi Explosion. And every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to roughly 12 p.m. Eastern Time, you can find me at twitch.tv/Sci-Fi Explosion, where I run Cosmic Cartoons, which is a very carefully curated collection of the weirdest and greatest and most bizarre Saturday morning cartoons ever, intercut with old ads and ephemera and all sorts of fun retro nonsense.
Thank you so much, Chris. Always fun to pop into your Twitch channel to watch what you've got going on.
I appreciate all the support you both have given me over the years. I really do.
Well, as for me, if you want more of me, you can find me online almost anywhere as Dmuma. That's DMUMA. I've got a couple other podcasts here on the Glitterjaw Network. One's called Are You My Mother, where we talk about moms in media. So one day we could certainly talk about Mrs. Maniac Mansion and look into mother characters there. And then with my friends Marilee and Tyler, they are dragging me into horror genre, which I have typically stayed away from. But to shield myself, I am making everything as gay as possible on our podcast, Fear Coded. You can get those wherever you get podcasts. Derek, what about you?
Sure, you can find me on a handful of podcasts. I have Walloping Web Snappers with my friend Doug, where we look at or do deep dives into every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. And also with Doug, I have Screonk, where we look at every Godzilla movie. And then with my friend Tommy, I have Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, where we look at the Simpsons video games chronologically, as well as video game history and pop culture history. I'll also plug that sometimes I do co-stream with Chris for Tokusatsu Thursday, which is a monthly tokusatsu stream that we do where we show a bunch of Japanese tokusatsu, which is like action shows, basically Japanese action shows like Ultraman and Kamen Rider and Super Sentai and Power Rangers and things like that. Also intercut with lots of commercials and music videos and clips. So just follow us on social media if you want to find when those are happening.
Gimmicks, of course, is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you're looking for other queer media podcasts, check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com.
If you want to support this show by giving us a little tip, you can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/gimmickspod, and you can follow this podcast at gimmickspod on Blue Sky and Instagram, and email us your questions, feedback, and corrections to gimmickspodcast@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms, and until next time, friends, keep being weird.
Let's just get through the first year before we start looking ahead another 10.